Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. It is the dynamic duo of hosts here at the GSMC. It is your boy Ethan, who is talking right now, and Brice is on the other side of the line. You know how we started, man. Brice, how are you doing? We got to check on our people here. So what's going on, Brice? How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. Just, I'm still living, man. Still living every day. Just taking it one day at a time, and just trying to be better than I was yesterday. So I'm doing pretty well, man. Watched all the games yesterday. Pretty interesting slate of an NFL weekend, I would say. A lot of big stories. Are obviously a lot of big storylines to talk about today, and everything. So, but overall, man, I'm doing well. How about you, Ethan? You doing all right?
You know, I try to stay calm most times throughout my life when it comes to watching sports. The Saints still give me headaches and wins, man. I just don't. If there was a choice to just not watch the Saints play and still be a fan, I would do it, but I can't because I'm too invested now, right? It's just once you get past that certain stage as a fan of any sports team and you just have to watch them, even though it hurts you more than it helps you, it's no going back. You're done. Like, honestly, if the Saints never won in 2009, I probably would have just stopped watching football because the Saints team just brings me so much emotional stress for no reason. We won 2 weeks in a row, and it's just, I don't feel good. But I feel good overall in general in life, though. That's fine. But football life is a whole different platform. Real quick, how's fantasy going for you?
Another undefeated week this week for me, man. Still stay undefeated on my league. I notice sometimes with my players, they start slow sometimes. First halves of games, they're not really doing anything, and they go, I'm going to have a bad fantasy week. And then the second half, they pick it back up. So, and really one of the biggest MVPs of my team so far has been Kyler Murray. He dropped 30-plus points last night. Another big game. He's led my team 4 out of the last 5 weeks in points in general, and he's been a big reason why. He has a bye next week, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens without him being there to carry the ship like always. But overall, man, we still look good. Every week I have to make a decision on my receivers because I got 4 good ones. Which one's not going to play this week based off matchups. So obviously got that going on. But overall, man, it's going pretty well.
All right, man. That's awesome. My fantasy week, it was a little bit of up and downs, I went up against a guy who essentially punted his lineup. He had a kicker on bye, currently still in his lineup. But he's down so much it wouldn't even matter. But, his team combined was really bad. If I can pull it up real quick. He just ended up, and it's not like a lot of players were on bye for him. It's just that the way his team was set up, it just wasn't good. He dropped a total of 63 points. He had Myles Gaskin on bye, but that didn't really matter too much. He had Patrick Mahomes only had 12 points because their defense went insane. Yeah, Philip Lindsay, Corey Clement was in his number 1 running back spot, or his number 2, and he gave him 3 points. And he had Mike Williams with 1.4, and Robert Tonyan didn't really do much. He had Keelan Allen at his flex with 22, and New Orleans defense, so that's all you know. That's all you need to know for why they got the 67 points there. But, yeah, that's the thing right there, man. But, yeah, man, so GSMC Monday, or we're taping this Monday, GSMC Tuesday. Brice, let me tell you, there's a lot of stuff going on in the NFC. As much as in the AFC, I feel like the AFC has kind of been on the downslope as far as like storylines. Because we understand Kansas City is just winning games, but it hasn't been the same Kansas City that we've seen the past few seasons. And, the Ravens, were they on bye this week?
I believe so. Yes, the Ravens were on bye this week.
Yeah, that's right, because Mark Ingram didn't play. Yeah, so the Ravens didn't play. Steelers and Titans had a big-time bout. And honestly, I don't even know who is the better team at this point. Honestly, it's probably the Steelers just because the way they handled the game in the first three quarters. And, the Titans almost battled back, but I don't want to sit here and say that the Titans were really in that game for a majority of it until, the Steelers almost handed the game away. But, so much is determined by the win-loss ratio, but one team that's not winning any games right now is the Dallas Cowboys. They got beat down by the Washington football team 3-25. If you probably bet whatever the line was, I think the line was Washington -5 to win that game, which is insane because Washington's offense at times can look just as bad, but this is horrific. This is bad.
Yeah, this is a bad look for the Cowboys, man. You would think, man, after getting embarrassed on Monday Night Football, and I mean embarrassed, the Cardinals were dancing all over the stadium, all over Monday night. And then you come back against a division rival in Washington, a team who offensively is one of the worst in almost every offensive statistical category in the NFL. Let them come out, dominate you on the ground, and brought 25 on your defense while you flew all the way to Washington to kick a field goal. That's crazy. I mean, they can't block. Zeke looked like a shell of himself. You got fumbling issues. Defense can't stop anybody. Andy Dalton's looking like a hot mess now. He got knocked out of the game. Mike McCarthy looking bad. Mike Nolan, people want his gone right now. People think there's a mutiny in the locker room. The defense can quit on the team already. There's just a lot going on in Big D, man. And it's something, I don't know if it's something that can be fixed, man. Then they got to play the Eagles next week on Sunday Night Football. I mean, prime time, you might see another embarrassment. If the Washington football team did this to them on just a normal 1 o'clock game, what? Now, it depends on who you would think is the better team. Now, I would think most people think the Eagles are the better team than Washington, even though of all the injuries. Especially if they were healthy, you would think they're the better team. But the way the Dallas Cowboys are playing right now, they look like, honestly, sometimes the worst team in football. The way they played Sunday, it made you think even the Jets might have a chance to get their first win if they played the Cowboys. That's how bad they played. And the expectations that have been set by the Dallas Cowboys and their history and their historic franchise, and then seeing what they have been this season, it's terrible, man. And, I know every Cowboy fan is just in shambles today. Obviously, biggest Cowboy fan, Skip Bayless, obviously is still in shambles to this day. And just, it's not good, man. I don't know if we've ever seen a team with this type of national prominence just look this bad. Because, I mean, the Cowboys have had bad years. But, it's like, where's the fight? Where's the energy? Where is the passion? Where is the motivation? People brought up the play where Andy Dalton got knocked out. Why the entire team, after he got knocked out, just kind of was just having their arms up in the air. Y'all ain't gonna call that. But nobody was fighting. No, there's no passion. There's no coming, backing up their quarterback. None of that. And so,
because that's not their quarterback, it was Dak.
But the thing is that that's the thing, is that there's just no passion on there with the Cowboys. It's like they're just now at the point where they're like, we have to just do this because this is our job. I'm just trying to get paid. I'm just trying to get through the game and just move on in my life because the season is over. Even though they are technically tied for first place in the division, even though Washington now has a tiebreaker on them right now. But they are technically tied for first place or second place, wherever you want to put them, however the numbers work out. They still have a chance, but they play like a team that they have no chance. That's how they play.
Yeah, they lack confidence. We already heard some interesting things leaking out of Cowboys camp talking about some anonymous sources, whoever gave the source to, NFL reporters, about they don't believe in the coaching staff and the coaching staff has them so ill prepared. And, typically when you hear that kind of stuff, you'd hope that there'd be a turnaround game and that wouldn't be the truth. But they look legitimately unprepared to play football every week. And not just the offense. Like, the defense in particular looks horrible. Ezekiel Elliott is just not what he used to be. And you can say that the offensive line is not what it used to be, which is fair. And maybe that has a lot to do with it. But, Zeke's fumbling. He might be trying to do too much. And the team just looks out of sorts. It does not look like the Cowboys that we even saw a year ago. And, from turnovers to mental mistakes, like, there's a couple games where the Cowboys should walk away with maybe some wins if they don't start off bad, like during when Dak was playing. And now it's just, without Dak, you see just how much harder it is for their offense to actually click. The only person on that offense that actually has some substance left is Amari Cooper. Fantasy-wise, at least. Everything else, though, is just out of control. Like, this team is abysmal. This team represents the NFC East to a T. The whole division feels like what the Cowboys are on a day-to-day basis. The Eagles at least put up points. The Eagles lose, but at least they fight and they put up points. We understand the Carson Wentz stuff is a headache, but at least they fight. At least Carson Wentz tries. This team doesn't try. Washington at least tries because Ron Rivera isn't going to force them to not try. And
even the Giants, even though the Giants won one game, I feel like they've gotten better week by week. They're just not a good team, but you can clearly see they're getting closer week by week to winning a bunch of ball games. They could easily have 2 or 3 wins right now instead of just having the one. So to me, they should have beat the Cowboys, but at the same time, they're playing better to me overall more than the Cowboys as well.
Right, just off of energy alone, like, let's forget records. All their records are bad. But just off of energy, body language, the Cowboys are the worst team in that division. And it's starting to feel like it's not very close. Talent-wise, we understand what they are, but talent hasn't gotten them anything, right? Even with Dak, talent wasn't getting them anywhere. Their defense is really bad. And, I said this before the Dak injury. If Dallas had won every game that they've lost so far with Dak, and, the narrative would have flipped 100% because it would have been MVP Dak, just like it is for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's defense, the Seahawks defense that Russell Wilson has been carrying is so bad that it's just laughable. And I've been saying this for weeks now. This is not sustainable play. You can't keep expecting Russell Wilson to be Superman and expecting you to get away with this for this long. Like, we're in like week 7, about to head into week 8, with presumably 9 more games left in the NFL season, with more injuries on the way. I don't know the timetable for Jamal Adams to return. Even when he was there, it wasn't like their pass defense was all that much better. It's maybe they find their ways to work it out, but I'm come to the mindset these days is that when people show you who you are, you need to believe them. And right now, their defense is horrendous. The Cowboys' defense is basically non-existent. The Jets are, I don't know what they are. They need to be relegated. The Saints' defense is horrendous in the pass game. Believe what you see. Like, what you're seeing right now, don't be fooled. Don't think that, there's a chance. Like, we're going to talk about Josh Allen in a second, later on in the podcast. But this is about a 3-week stretch now where Josh Allen has not looked like the guy who was surging the league, and people were wondering what's going on here. Is this ascension? I don't know if it's a pure regression, but, it's tough to monitor. Believe what you see. What we're seeing out of the guys like Drew Brees and Tom Brady is it took a few weeks and now they're back to what they were beforehand. Right? Everybody had a panic button ready to go. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, these guys are washed. They can't play anymore. And I don't think I've heard that since. Like, after like week 3, everybody's kind of just pumped the brakes, right? Believe what you're seeing.
Yeah, definitely, man. And one thing I think that also makes Dallas' situation sometimes even worse is the fact that we forget 2 things. They have about, in terms of Pro Bowl, like previous Pro Bowl players on defense, like 6 or 7. They have, and so they technically, from perspective, they have talent, but it's not meshing for whatever reason. And then second, Jerry Jones has paid a lot of money out to some of their top players. And Ethan, this is an honest question. Have any of the players that he have actually paid done something since they got paid? Amari Cooper hasn't really had a great season. He's honestly, in some people's eyes, the third option behind CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup because he really doesn't get that many targets. And he doesn't really do anything until garbage time. DeMarcus Lawrence, we know what's happening there. He hasn't done anything since he got paid. Jalen Smith, where people thought he was going to be this amazing linebacker, and now he's struggling. Zeke got paid. Now he has a fumbling issue. He hasn't looked the same since that. Is there anybody that he's paid that has still played as well before they got paid on the Cowboys? Because I don't see anybody. Everybody looks like they gotten worse since they got paid.
Well, how about this? We're going to take a break first, and then I'll come back and answer your question. How about that? So we'll be right back. GSMC, we'll be right back.
Football, basketball, and baseball are all back, and that means it's time to get down your bets. This is Brice and Ethan here to tell you about our favorite sports book, and that's BetUS. We only endorse one sports book, and that's BetUS.com. Why, you ask? BetUS is the pioneer in online betting with more than 25 years in the biz. You need to know that your sports book is coming with integrity and longevity, and you need to know that you're going to get paid.
That's right, Brice. Live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, entertainment, and all kinds of crazy prop bets and futures. They have it all. Nobody in this industry gives you bigger bonuses than BetUS. Go to BetUS.com now and fill out your information. It only takes about a minute. When you get to the How Did You Hear About Us page, there's a box. Type in GSMC and get up to 150% in bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody can beat that. I bet at BetUS, and so should you. Join BetUS today, and don't forget to type in GSMC to get up to 150% bonus on your first deposit. That is BetUS.com, America's favorite sportsbook.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, GSMC Football Podcast, we're back, and Brice asked me an interesting question about Jerry Jones's pockets. We're pocket watching Jerry Jones, and what we've seen is that once the checkbook starts coming out, the talent starts to leave the door. And I feel like just looking at it, it seems that way, but I don't really think that that's the case. I still feel like Ezekiel Elliott with an average offensive line is better than most running backs. It's just that right now, he just has never been the same guy in his first 2 years in the league than he has been now. His first 2 years in the league, he looked explosive. He looked like he was running a different style of running that made it seem like when, he does the cereal bowl eating celebration when he gets a first down or does basically anything positive. It doesn't seem like it's the same impact anymore. And that has to do with a lot of factors. The offensive line has gotten older, hurt, and it's not that same offensive line when Dak was a rookie. And people are saying that, he has the best offensive line in the NFL. Of course he's going to look good and things like that. So I think that goes to a factor. Amari Cooper is a weird player, and he's been so before he was traded. You got to remember his Raiders days weren't always the cleanest either. Not to say he was there for that long, but, I think Amari Cooper is fine. He's just who he is. He's not like the biggest impact guy, but you have to respect him as a receiver. And he can make plays for you. I just think that A lot of times, the Dallas Cowboys have not been placed in ways to succeed in order to see him be a clutch receiver or have clutch, moments as a receiver. At least not that many times. When Dak was playing this year, Amari Cooper was getting some big time catches. He's probably been the most consistent wide receiver on their team, just as far as being able to get up there and get it. But guys like Michael Gallup has been in and out of the offense. Essentially, he's out of it now. I don't know. He did nothing yesterday. And, CeeDee Lamb had his worst game as a pro. And, he's only played 7 games. So take that as you will. But at the same time, he had his worst game by far his rookie season. He dropped some passes. He was offsides. He was just all out of whack. And you could see that the team was frustrated. Everybody's frustrated. It's just not what you expect. I joke around and say anytime you give the Cowboys expectations, bad things happen. And this is like the worst case scenario. The Cowboys had expectations and then, injuries happen, COVID stuff. But at the end of the day, you got to go out there and play. And you would think that, someone like Andy Dalton's stature, I don't know, maybe Andy Dalton really is washed, but this can't just be. Like, you don't just take a guy that at least 2 years ago you could say, yeah, I'd probably take maybe 15 quarterbacks over Andy Dalton. Mm-hmm. You could honestly sit there and say I would trade for Ryan Fitzpatrick right now. Like that's the level of just how bad this is, and we don't know just how. I don't think Andy Dalton is going to play next week just because of the concussion. Clearly he is not okay. I don't care what anybody says. I wouldn't play him because why play him anyway? You're probably just going to lose because that's what the Cowboys are right now. Some losers. And I don't mean to say that in some snarky way. It's just that's just the reality of the situation. The record reflects who you are, and they are some losers, and they've lost in some perpetually horrible ways the past 2 weeks. Yeah,
it's just not really looking good for Dallas right now, and we'll have to see what all happens. And if anything, maybe if the Cowboys continue to lose and have the slide, maybe they can think about, if they don't want to bring Dak back, maybe getting themselves into the Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes potentially. But because I think a lot of people are looking at this team, looking at what's happening and saying, this looks like a rebuilding process because maybe they're not as talented as we thought they were. People were predicting to be a Super Bowl team before the year. And now they're going to be at the bottom of the barrel the way this is going to, if this keeps up. So, they're just not that talented. And speaking of teams that are not that talented, I'm going to transition us over to the Patriots right now. And they have not looked good in the last 2 weeks. Cam has not looked good at all since coming back from COVID. And he just doesn't look the same to me. He doesn't look like the same Cam Newton that was started the season. Now, I think everybody knows Patriots really have no weapons. Edelman is a shell of himself. He drops passes now. He's not reliable. He just doesn't look like the same receiver. N'Keal Harry looks like a bust to a lot of people. They can't run the ball, realistically, outside of Cam Newton. And so, it doesn't look good. No. So, my question is, what do you think is the cause of Cam's struggles and the Patriots' struggles?
Well, it's hard to separate one from the other. Cam struggles basically for the same reason that, Tom Brady struggled in that offense as well. And we're seeing a lot of stark similarities of they have no weapons and they haven't drafted weapons well for years. N'Keal Harry is a bust. It's not even a bust. It was a bad draft pick. N'Keal Harry didn't come in with this overwhelmingly amount of promise. This is not a bust. This isn't like Jamar Chase who comes in next year and suddenly becomes N'Keal Harry, what he is now. This is legitimate. N'Keal Harry was who he was, and he's just drastically worse than what you could have thought a average receiver would be, because I did not come thinking that N'Keal Harry was going to be somebody. When people saw the draft, it was like, okay, this guy, maybe it's just, people give Belichick the benefit of the doubt, but in reality, he has whiffed so hard on skill position. Like, he has whiffed horribly. And he's been riding off the fact that Tom Brady is a legend. He's been riding off the fact that Gronk is a legend. He's done super amazing on offensive line. But let's keep in mind, he was winning games with LeGarrette Blount and, James White and, guys like that, right? So when you're thinking about it from that perspective, you're like, okay, you don't need too much when you have someone like Tom Brady who can just make things happen. But now Cam Newton is a definite downgrade of a passer than Cam Newton, to the point where they have no choice. Like, people thought that the Patriots changed their offense to center it around Cam to utilize his best skills. And maybe partially it's true. But I think there's another side to this. Their offense is their talent pool is so trash. They have no other choice but to run this, like, college level, almost Georgia Tech a year ago offense. That's basically what we're watching here. They can't throw. N'Keal Harry is not good. I honestly, if it weren't for the fact that Julian Edelman is like their first overall receiver in the lineup and N'Keal Harry is their second, I promise you, I can't name you their third. It's just that bad. Like, I don't know who it is. Their tight end that they drafted hasn't played. They have skill position players like Damian Harris is probably their third best skill position player. This is horrible. Sony Michel left Georgia, played 1 year of football, and he has never been seen again, because I don't know who is this imposter Sony Michel, but he is not good. I don't know what happened. I don't know. He wasn't this bad year one. What's wrong? They're just not good. I mean, like, half their defense, opted out of the season. That matters. And the runs that haven't, they're just not there. It's not. I don't even want to say their defense is bad. It's just their offense is this abysmal, this horrid. And a lot of it, people are going to sit here and say that, maybe people were overblown by this whole, how could you pass up on Cam? Like, you see in the first 2 weeks, Cam Newton, you shouldn't have passed up on him. All these teams that passed up on Cam, look now. And now we're seeing this, like, oh, maybe this is why we passed up on Cam, because, he hasn't looked too great. And, yeah, we understand the COVID thing. We don't know what the underlying effects are. But they're just like, Cam hasn't looked really super great, especially as a passer, the whole season. And the only game that you could say he looked pretty good was against the Seahawks, who have a really bad pass defense. Horrific.
Yeah. And I think one thing sometimes I think about is I'm surprised, they sign receivers, but they sign guys. They signed a guy 2 or 3 weeks ago. Last name was Bird. I forgot what his first name was, but apparently he was on the practice squad of another team, and yet they're expecting him to come in to be the deep threat. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, you got guys. I mean, listen, if you don't want to take a flyer on certain guys, like, they had a Dez Bryant out there, they could have gave him a shot. They could have gave somebody else a shot. I'm pretty sure there's a receiver who has some talent out there who just isn't getting called. And it feels like they're going for somebody who's just like, they're undrafted. There's a reason why they've been on somebody's practice squad for 3-4 years, and they could do something with it. Like, what? And it's not good if I'm Bill Belichick, because basically what you have right now, if you're Bill, going into the future, is a rebuilding process again. Because if the Patriots continue to play this way for the rest of the year, let's say they have a bad record, first time in 2 decades they've had a bad record. What is Bill going to do? Does he want to be part of rebuilding? Does he want to reshape the team? Will this make Bill want to leave? Will this make nobody talks about this. Sometimes coaches are just like, you know what? I had a great 2-decade run. I won 6 championships. I've done everything I could do. I'm getting older. Maybe it's time for me to hang it up. Maybe I need to let a new face take over New England in this rebuilding process, and I need to move on. You never know what he could be thinking. Because, Bill Belichick's a guy, you don't know what he thinks till he does it. So we don't know what he could be going through his head right now. I mean, the fact that he was content going into the season with Jarrett Stidham and Hoyer before they got Cam, I mean, and there's no way he could sit here and think we're going to win with that. Unless he truly wanted to show people and stick it to Tom that it was my coaching and my scheming that won his games and not you. Because at the end of the day, if you ain't got no talent, it don't matter how good of a coach you are and how good of a scheme you are. If you ain't got players, you ain't winning ball games. And that's just as simple as it gets right there.
I mean, that's just kind of what it is. I don't know if I'm not going to sit here and say that Bill Belichick is trying to take the back door out of here, because he just doesn't seem like that type of guy. He probably is just, the thing is though, you could just sit here and say, like, oh yeah, he's just waiting for somebody else to come by. But for one, the Patriots are still too well coached as a team to tank. Like, they're just not going to lose that many games, and they're not going to be in the running for one of these three quarterbacks in this draft. And that's just the end all be all. I don't think their end goal here is to look for quarterbacks. What I will say is they need to start calling Jamar Chase's family right now. They need to call somebody. They need to call Travis Etienne's family. They might have to do some tampering, because this is it. Like, their offense is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like, people were sitting here talking about the New Orleans Saints last year and some parts of this year when it was just Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. And then this year when people just felt like it was just Alvin Kamara. And they still find a way to move the ball down the field. And maybe that's a testament more to Drew Brees than it is a knock against Cam. But we all know Cam was never this short yardage passing guru. He's not this big timing route guy. Cam is playing exactly like who he is and who he always has been. So to think that we expected a different Cam Newton than what he's shown us today, that's on us if that's what happened. But I don't think that's what happened. The fact of the matter is Cam Newton is fine. He is who he is. It's just his team is not built to win because it has no talent. That is it. You may find better talent on the Jets offense, like skill position wise. Maybe.
That's a big maybe.
You don't think Jamison Crowder is not the number one wide receiver on this team? Because I do.
I mean, this team, yeah. I mean, the thing is, Jamison Crowder is, some people consider more him as a slot. It seems like that's the only type of position they've had success with if they've talked about receivers in New England as a slot guy. You talk about outside the numbers guy? I don't know about that one. But yeah, Jamison Crowder would probably be a number one receiver on this team. And that's not that great.
No, that's horrible. But we're going to take another break and we're going to move along in the NFL and all the storylines coming up. GSMC will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, Brice, we're back. GSMC Football Podcast. And, we just finished taxing on about the Patriots' struggles and then Dallas' struggles, too. Now let's segue ourselves into the Tampa Bays, the Tampa Bradys, whatever one you want to call them. The Bucs, another impressive win. They beat the brakes off of the Raiders. And the Raiders are a pretty decent team. Like, let's not mistake ourselves, right? They they beat the Chiefs, right? Mm-hmm. They beat the Chiefs. They beat New Orleans. You know, asterisks on the New Orleans beatdown. We don't know what New Orleans is as a team. But they did beat the Chiefs. And that's a big time win. And they play hard. And, you know, John Gruden is a solid coach. I think everybody was, I don't want to say that people were wrong about the trade when it when it happened, and, you know, the 2 first round picks for, you know, Khalil Mack, it felt weird in the moment. Is it weird now? Probably not. And we've seen a lot of trades recently that have been kind of similar, and nobody gives anybody the strength, like the same, like, you know, beratement. That's just it on him. But, you know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers routed the Raiders on Sunday. Tom Brady had 5 touchdown passes. He just kept throwing. When he didn't need to throw, he still kept throwing the football. So now they have Antonio Brown. I think he comes week 10.
I think week 9. So I think
week 9. Oh yeah, his first game was against New Orleans. So I am enjoying life. But yeah. So a team that already has, you know, they're a very top heavy talent team. You know, not a lot of depth in a lot of positions, but they're getting the job done. Their defense is lethal. Their defense is monsters. Some rough riders over there. Their defensive line is scary. We all know about Levante David. I don't like him. I'm sure you don't like him either as a Falcons fan. He's not a good guy. I have no desire to see him on the opposite side of the field. But that defense is for real, and that offense is finally starting to click. Gronk is surging. Like, this is the Gronk that people with Gronk expectations were hoping to see. Now he looks like, you know, a guy who isn't looking like a 40-year-old. Now he looks like a guy who's well-versed to play another season at tight end. Like, this is crazy, right? Brady's kind of found his groove in this offense. Everybody's getting a touch of the ball, even though Mike Evans' numbers are kind of wonky because he draws a lot of DPIs, but he doesn't get a lot of, like, big plays. So adding Antonio Brown is just a whole nother mix because they already have to double. Teams selectively choose to double Mike Evans, unless it's New Orleans, because they'll just put Marshawn Lattimore on him and they'll probably fight at least twice a game. Other than that, though, everybody doubles him. So, you know, Chris Godwin is eating. Scotty Miller is eating. Ronald Jones is having a heck of a year running the ball, even though Bruce Arians still likes to take him out of the game, you know, sometimes for long, extensive periods of time. Rest in peace, fantasy. You know, we keep forgetting that they have Leonard Fournette. Like, now they have Antonio Brown. How are you supposed to cover a team like this? The answer is you don't. But in theory, who's stopping this in the NFC when I haven't seen one solid defense, maybe besides the Bears, and I still don't think they have enough to handle what the best potential outcome of this Buccaneers team would look like now.
Yeah, Tampa's offense looks monstrous. Looks like one of the greatest offenses that's ever been put together. And if Antonio Brown can even be half of what Antonio Brown was to be, that's dangerous, man. And it honestly gives them insurance just in case a Mike Evans goes down or God, when he's had injury issues this season, if he goes down, you still have another receiver who's one of the top receivers in the game ready to go. And we forget about Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller is now emerging as a pretty decent, pretty good wide receiver for Tom. And now they have 4 receivers, 2-3 running backs, because we still forget they have LaShawn McCoy too. You notice their entire roster is a bunch of just big name players. LaShawn, you know, Leonard Fournette, you know, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, you know, OJ, Rob. Like, when you hear all those names, you think good, really good players. And all of that, so one offense with Tom Brady leading that. About 3 years ago, that could be a Pro Bowl starting lineup. Don't forget that could be a Pro Bowl starting lineup 3-4 years ago. So clearly, you know, that their offense is one of the top in the NFL, and Brady's been playing like it. And then on defensively, like you said, defensively they're getting better week by week. They're young, they're fast, they're athletic. They've really made great strides in the secondary. They have a ferocious pass rush. And this is why people thought Tampa Bay might be a team that could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. They handled the Packers last week. They just put a whooping on the Raiders. I mean, it would be interesting to see that matchup with the Saints because you never know, Ethan. Maybe your Saints the only team left that maybe can be able to stop them potentially.
Stop it.
And I know you don't feel confident about that.
Stop it. Stop. Please.
But
please put it away.
Somebody got to do it, Ethan. Somebody got to do it. And if that means if y'all can't do it, I guess nobody can do it.
Listen, you should never depend on the Saints to stop a soul. Let me tell you this: no matter the talent, no matter the outcome, the Saints defense will always show you just why you just can't believe in that sort of mumbo jumbo. Our secondary is horrendous right now. Don't know what's going on in the back four. It's just abysmal. And to think that we have to go test Antonio Brown first game back, I'm not having fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad we're winning games because we can't afford to lose too many before that matchup because that's going to define a lot in the NFC. And we've only had 2 NFC South games so far. So all in all, if we keep this up, divisional wise, we should still be on top. But at the same time, it's like the Saints can very well lose so many games just based off of the fact that we cannot stop a soul. This Tampa Bay team defensively has looked solid since week 1 on, and they've just done nothing but get better. The Saints have done nothing defensively but get worse, like day after day, and just show bright spots here or there.
I mean, it sounds like that means probably playing against a team like Tampa Bay, you're probably going to have to get ready for shootouts if you're an opposing team. If you're going to beat Tampa, you might have to be, hey, we got to score. We can't rely on our defense to stop that side of the ball in Tampa with Tom Brady. We're just going to have to see if we can make something against this Tampa defense, and that's probably what's going to have to be the key. They're basically like Kansas City in the NFC. Not fully to that point because they haven't done it as long as Kansas City. But basically Kansas City, you have to outscore Kansas City. Remember, the only loss they've had this year, Oakland dropped 40. Outside of that, no one else has beat them because they can't outscore them.
Well, I mean, Tampa's defense is just extremely aggressive, and they are looking to hurt you, right? And if you have some time in the pocket to throw the ball, you can take the top off. Like, let's not forget that a rookie put 27.5 on them, right? And like, Justin Herbert has been nothing but sensational since he's gotten the start. But I think you got to remember, they also just dismantled the Packers. So we don't even know, like, the NFL is just a jumble. I have no idea who was a good team, who was not. There's only one team that's undefeated, and I still don't know exactly who they are as a team. Like, that's just where I am NFL-wise. Everything, I just take it at face value right now. I guess I'll put the Steelers at the number 1 spot because they've won all their games. They beat Tennessee, who was essentially on a hot streak. They played 3 games in 13 days, so maybe cut them some slack. I don't know. And then everybody just has the Chiefs up there because we know what they're capable of. They won the title, so you can't count them out. I don't think anybody is, but everybody knows what they're capable of. It's one of those things where, like, in basketball, like a team might be coasting and then they turn it on. Maybe the Chiefs just haven't turned it on yet. Who knows? But what I do know is that I don't know who's good in the NFL. Like, I don't know if there's an elite team. I think every team this year has a chance to be beaten.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely can agree with that one. It's just a wacky league, really. And speaking of Pittsburgh, you said you're not sure, I guess, how good is it you're not sure how good they are, or you're not sure if they're really as good as the record says?
I mean, their record is what it is. They're an extremely well-coached team. Their defense is for real, even though they lost Devin Bush. They still have guys who can, step up in his place. Offensively, they just haven't been what they could be. Big Ben, although he's looked all right, he's just not great. Like, he's not doing what Brady's doing. He's not doing what Brice is doing. He's just kind of around. Like, Ben's numbers aren't like, oh my gosh, Ben Roethlisberger. Like, it's kind of just been, wow, the Steelers are just getting wins. They know how to win. And that's typically how it is. They're very Belichick-esque. Like, they just know how to win. And they've been around the block for a long time. Mike Tomlin's been around winning games. Like, to think that this team last year, basically similar roster, except for one change, and that's the quarterback, won 8 games last year. It only sounds like it makes sense for Big Ben to come back and they still win games. Like, it should be a testament to just how good of a team how good of a coach and a team the Steelers are. When you win 2 games or you win 8 games with a team that used 2 quarterbacks who will probably never play another snap in this league. Right? That's just the end all be all. They're in a pretty, I don't want to say they're in a tough division because I really don't know what that matchup looks like between the Steelers and the Ravens. That's going to be fun. But I don't think anybody's taking Cleveland seriously. And we all know that the Bengals aren't there yet, even though they have a lot of talent in Joe Burrow, should I say. We know they still have a lot of holes on that team. But right now, the Steelers should be the logical front runner because nobody's playing defense quite as strong in the AFC as them. Maybe the Ravens, that's it. And they're in the same division.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's basically the main thing, Pittsburgh's D. But I think we can't also discount Tennessee. They did play well. I think one thing, if anything, this entire season has done for Tennessee, this has really helped to me, Ryan Tannehill, because I know people came into the year after getting the contract that he got and thought, oh, playoff Tannehill is the real Tannehill. And yeah, we have to see what he does when he gets back there, because it looks like Tennessee's going to get back there and probably win the AFC South. But, he's playing better than he played in Miami, and he seems to have found his comfortability. He obviously has a great rapport with his entire receiving group. And, he even, before, think about it, they trailed by 2-3 scores yesterday. And basically, if the kicker ain't missed a field goal, would have went into overtime. But Tannehill was making key big throws late. They said, Tannehill, bring us back, and then he brought them back. And I think that's big for him in terms of the perception of the type of quarterback he is. I'm not saying he's a top 5, top 8 elite quarterback. But I'm saying, clearly, I think Tannehill has shown he's not what he was in Miami. He's not what you thought he was coming from there. And he isn't just what you saw in the playoffs completely last year. He can throw, he can make plays, and he can win you some ball games.
Yeah, I will say, though, before we wrap this segment up and head into the last one, Tannehill did have some pretty missed throws. That Steelers defense, when it wants to put it on you, he was not having the best day for the first, I'd say, 2.5 quarters. And, not being able to utilize Derrick Henry to his best potential, that does matter a lot because Derrick Henry hides a lot of things this offense is capable of. And, A.J. Brown had a big game, and Corey Davis was pretty good as well. But all in all, this is a tough matchup, and hopefully they get to see each other again because it was one of the better games of this year. We had a lot of good games this week 7. Let's go ahead and take our final break, and we'll come back and wrap up the podcast. GSMC.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, Brice. GSMC, last segment of the day for the podcast. Is it time to start handing out apologies to Baker Mayfield, or are you a sensible person?
I mean, listen, Baker didn't light it up, but it was against the Bengals, so we have to take it with a grain of salt. If he did this against Baltimore or the Pittsburgh Steelers, then we can say that. But we should at least be like, okay, let's not overreact to how he played against Pittsburgh. He played better this week. So it's still a wait and see with Baker. Let's just continue to wait and see, and just see how he does in other games this season.
Yeah, honestly, and I hope for the Browns' sake that Baker Mayfield, this is supposed to be who he is. Because if it's not, and they're just going to have to keep doing this tap dance around, is he good? Is he not? Is he serviceable? Is he not? We don't know what he is. He can't seem to play with Odell, because as soon as Odell's not in the game, Baker looks better. At least there's this weird statistic about without Odell on the field, they're a much better football team. And, who knows? And they've been kind of up and down since Nick Chubb went out. And after that Cowboys win, they've seemed to be a little bit more rocky than what they were showing earlier on. But all in all, the same things apply here. Believe what people are showing you. The Browns beat teams that they're supposed to beat. They're supposed to beat the Bengals twice, right? The Bengals defense is horrendous. They don't have an offensive line. Joe Burrow is a rookie, even though he's been really good and he looks beyond his years as a rookie. So does Justin Herbert, whatever the case may be. Rookie teams not ready to win games in the NFL. That is a fact. But what is, that Cleveland defense is not good. So that's one thing. And they were running the ball a lot, probably to hide the fact that, one, they don't have that much faith in Baker Mayfield to start throwing the ball all around the field. And two, they have the best running back duo in the league when healthy. And it helps keep their defense off the field, eats clock. Stefanski has a system that makes sense for how that team is constructed. When you have to start throwing the ball a lot and have to win games with your arm and get into shootouts, that's when the Browns start to showcase that they are not that great. Like, if the Steelers or Baltimore, who are both in their division, if they have to start putting the squeeze on Cleveland, it's over with. Because I don't care that Baker Mayfield threw 3 different touchdowns, or he threw, how many touchdowns did he have?
I think he had 5.
Yeah, he had 5 total, and I think most of them went to tight ends. Like, fine, cool. That's what's up. It was tight end day. But whatever, man. Like, this isn't going to that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. You had a A-plus talent wide receiver that you couldn't get the ball to. You have Jarvis Landry, who seemingly disappears farther and farther into the what's happening territory. And I honestly don't know if it's Baker. I don't know if it's the wide receivers. I don't know if it's just a scheme. But everything in Cleveland, receiver-wise, feels very strange, and you want no parts of it, especially for fantasy. You want no parts of it. It's been abysmal. But they've been winning games. And you got to give Baker credit for coming in and dueling Joe Burrow, because he definitely could have just not been good like he was on that first drive. Like, he could legitimately not be good, but that's not what happened. He takes a lot of criticism. He gets a lot of smack from everybody in the media, including myself. I'm not a fan of Baker Mayfield, but he showed up and he got the job done. Does this mean that, oh man, the media, we all got it wrong? No. It's just that, Baker Mayfield's an inconsistent football player, has been since he left Oklahoma, And we've now have a lot of evidence to sit here and say a lot of these Oklahoma-bred quarterbacks come into the league and are not like NFL caliber ready quarterbacks. I mean, not many quarterbacks are NFL caliber per se because it's really hard to hit on one of those guys. But Oklahoma has had this tendency of bringing in these high volume, high statistical scoring quarterbacks, you know, Heisman Trophy winners and the like. But when it comes to going to an NFL system, it's just not clicking the same way. And I don't know if that just means that more NFL teams need to draft according to what system they're going to bring in. Like, Kyler Murray was not brought in to be a pocket passer. I don't know what Baker Mayfield was brought in to do. I mean, he had the Drew Brees comps and stuff like that, but that's just mostly due to height, I feel, more than anything else. But, yeah, that's all I have to say on Baker Mayfield. I don't really have much else to say. He put up 29 points on my bench in fantasy, and he still won't get the start next week. I promise you he won't. It's not happening.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, I saw a good point being brought up about Baker as well, that actually you could say, since he has all this talent, you could look at this Cleveland team, at least on the offensive side of the ball, and say, well, if they struggle, it's not they don't have running backs. It's not the offensive line is the worst thing ever. It's not they don't have receivers. You can kind of somewhat pinpoint that on Baker. So what I saw was that maybe seeing sometimes when Baker has those bad games, maybe Cleveland's seeing, you know, yeah, we might make the playoffs this year. And yeah, we might win 10 or 9 games with Baker. But it's more because of what we have around him himself. So would that make them as an organization still maybe look into trying to move off of Baker? Because, well, we're not going to win a Super Bowl if he's the guy. And, you know, if a team feels that way, they might look outside just to see, can we get a better player than Baker? Because obviously through the draft, it probably won't happen. But maybe through a trade or maybe through free agency, maybe Cleveland might see where they are at the end of the year with Baker and think, okay, what if we bring someone else who's better than Baker in? Now let's see how good we are as a team.
Depends on who's out there, really. Like, it's not like I'm not projecting a lot of quarterback like a lot of guys looking to make a new start or anything like that. And I don't think they're going to be in search for Sam Darnold when the Jets eventually pawn him off. Like, you know, I don't know if that's the answer.
I mean, that would be an interesting move if they did bring in Sam Darnold, because we go from a team that has no offensive talent to a team that has a bunch. And then obviously all the pressure would be on him to produce. Because in that situation, the Cleveland situation, you could actually say that's a high pressure QB situation just because you have the talent. It's just on you to make it work, or else everybody knows you're the problem.
I guess so. That's just kind of how it's been. And, you know, Cleveland hasn't had a quarterback, I don't know, since I've been alive. Like, let's just be real here. Like, they haven't had the guy at quarterback.
The most successful quarterback since we've been alive was Derek Anderson when they went 10-6 that one year.
Right.
And didn't make the playoffs.
Like, Cleveland's best, I guess, offensive guy that we know of since probably 2 years ago has been Joe Thomas, an offensive lineman. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was Flash Gordon, and he was not on the team for very long. And it was just all about, well, what could he be? So, yeah, take that as you will. Let's get to coach firings, the tier list. Who do you have as your number one? Let's remove Adam Gase. It doesn't matter. We know what's going on there. Adam Gase can no longer be number one because he will always be number one. But who is the new number one removed of Adam Gase? Adam Gase in his own territory.
I believe my new number one is the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, Mike Zimmer.
Ooh.
I think clearly they're rebuilding. They have basically said this season's done. Kirk need to get out of there. We got to trade away our best players, get talent. Usually when that happens, you probably want a new regime in there with that. So I could definitely see this being Mike Zimmer's last year just because just look out how porous Minnesota has played, getting blown out by the Falcons, getting beaten and blown out by a couple of teams at the beginning of the year. Kirk Cousins looks terrible. Outside of Dalvin Cook, I mean, what else do they have going? Defensively, they look like a mess. And like I said, the fact that they're saying that they might trade Thielen, they might trade, other guys, potentially one of their starting tackles and other good players that they have on their team, I think that basically means we're blowing it up. And if you're going to blow it up, you got to get the old regime out of there and bring a new one in.
It's crazy because they just re-signed him, right? They just extended his contract.
Just gave him a deal.
Oh man, he's about to get the
he's about to get the Nate McMillan.
He's about to get the Nate McMillan. Oh no. I don't know, man. It's like they have some talent offensively, right? I feel like offensively they shouldn't be. Kirk is bad. Like the Kirk thing probably takes his team to a different level. Like, I don't know what do you do in this sort of situation? You re-sign Kirk, you give him more money. Kirk has a pretty decent playoff run for his standards, and then this is what he shows you after the fact. Dalvin Cook,
Stephon Diggs.
I mean, you could argue that they literally just got Stephon Diggs back. They just have somebody who wants to be there rather than Stephon Diggs, who arguably you could say Stephon Diggs has the Jimmy Butler syndrome, where everyone's like Jimmy was right when he left Minnesota because he said that they were soft. And I'm not saying that Kirk Cousins is soft. I'm just saying that Kirk Cousins isn't good. And, he wanted the ball more and Kirk Cousins couldn't get it to him. So he said, all right, I'm out of here. I can't do this. And, Kirk Cousins is getting the ball to Justin Jefferson for sure. I see it all the time. He's on my fantasy team. So
he's the bright spot in that receiving corps.
But, guys like Harrison Smith and stuff like that, they're definitely looking, because they have so many injuries anyway. They might as well move off. At least that's their mindset, because their draft pick scenario is not the greatest. It's not like they have a bunch of cap space. And realistically, I don't know how you move off of Kirk Cousins when you just pay him. Because who's going to sit there and trade for Kirk Cousins?
Is it possible that they may do some salary cap hell and have to cut Kurt and just all that guaranteed money has to be on the cap?
Listen, they will find a way. let's not NFL. They'll get the NFL offices, the front offices. They have some of the best business guys, some of the best cap managers. They know what to do. It's not like we are in the office, because we would be like, oh, man, I don't know how we're going to do this. But these guys know how to manage money. Like, some they do it bad, but at least in theory, they know how to manage money, or else they wouldn't be there. I don't know what you do I don't know if Mike's it's weird for me to say, because I don't think Mike Zimmer is a bad head coach.
I think he would get a job.
He would get a job tomorrow. He would be the new Falcons head coach. That's exactly what would happen. He would get fired by Minnesota, and then he would go fly to Atlanta, talk to Arthur Blank, and he will be in the office the next day. Because I think he's that good of a coach. And I don't think that, sometimes coaching is about people buying into your system. And I still think that people buy into the Mike Zimmer experience. It's just not good right now. And maybe they just take a year off. Maybe that's all it is. But, I don't know if he's number one for me. But it's a solid hot take. I think Matt Patricia still has to be up there in the discussion point. But I can't lie. I don't know was Mike McCarthy hired for more than a year? Because he can go tomorrow. Mike McCarthy could go tomorrow. I tried to hold out strong. I had friends that were sitting there saying, yeah, man, Mike McCarthy might be out of there before the end of the year. I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. And this is when Dak was around. I was like, listen, things happen. Defenses don't always show up, but the offense is scoring too much points. And whatever the case may be. But yeah, there's some bad numbers. But the locker room doesn't mess with Mike McCarthy. I don't know what's going on offensively from the offensive coordinator, because I thought the offensive coordinator would honestly be the next guys to be a head coaching gig because of how well he was doing with Dak. But in recent lighting, things have just looked horrible. I don't know what that team is. And thus, I don't know who is safe. Because the defensive coordinator, I don't know where he's going to go. But I don't think anybody wants him. I don't think Mike McCarthy is in cold water. Like, he doesn't look like his job is safe. I know Jerry Jones is just through the roof in rage. This is horrible. But no, he will be he's my number one for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's definitely understandable, just based on how the Cowboys have played this entire year. I mean, how can you not put him up there? I mean, he definitely deserves to be up there. The way this team's playing, with these expectations, with Super Bowl expectations, talent like they have, and them playing like this, he really might be a one-and-done coach. Because he's going to have to heavily consider it, because he also has to look at how his players are playing. You can't keep him in there if the players are like, I don't want to play for him. Because if you do that, you're basically just admitting to another bad year next year. Because they're basically telling you, literally, coach, I don't want to do this anymore. like, please, take a change. It has to happen.
For sure. And with that said, let's go ahead and wrap it up. GSMC Football Podcast, thank you guys for tuning in and checking us out. Don't forget to like, review, share the podcast on whatever platform you listen to, and social media, Facebook and Twitter at GSMC Football. Ask us questions, hang out, communicate with us, build a community with us. For Brice is Ethan, GSMC. We'll be back next week to talk about all things Week 8. See you soon.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.